Our history is steeped in tales of ships, planes, swimmers, and more who have ventured out into deep water only to slip over the horizon and out of existence without leaving a clue as to what happened to them. Still, one phenomenon stands out as being decidedly more mysterious than that. Entire land masses have seemingly vanished without a trace. These disappearing phantom islands have puzzled seafarers, explorers, and map makers for centuries. Hi, I'm Mr. Mysterious, and welcome to Mysterious 5. In this video, we'll take a look at 5 of the most interesting phantom islands that have seemingly vanished into thin air. Burmaha Island. We'll start off with one of the most perplexing cases of a mysterious vanishing island in the northwestern hemisphere. Called Burmaha, this uninhabited fragment of land is said to have been located in the Gulf of Mexico, off the northern coast of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The first official record of this mysterious jetty was published in 1539 by explorer and presumed conquistador Alonso de Santa Cruz in a list of discovered islands. Burmaha was subsequently included on maps by Spanish cartographers throughout the 16th and 17th century. There were also many recorded sightings of this island by passing ships, which is why there wasn't any reason to doubt it was there. It may be interesting to note that Burmaha was used in the 1970s as a landmark on which Mexico based its claim to a 200 nautical mile economic zone, which encompassed not only valuable fishing waters, but also major oil reserves. However, a 1997 survey clearly indicated that there was nothing but open water where the island of Burmaha was long said to have existed. Another survey was conducted in 2009 by the National Autonomous University of Mexico using boats, satellites, and helicopters. In spite of their best efforts, this expedition failed to find any sign of the island. The disappearance of Burmaha baffled both the government and populace of Mexico alike, and it threatened economic claims that Mexico had in this region. For the United States, this was a reason to nullify the treaty for rights to the valuable oil reserves dotting the surrounding areas. One theory regarding what happened to the island of Burmaha suggests that the cartographers who originally charted the island made up a phantom island with the intentional goal of confusing enemies. One of the more outlandish conspiracy theories proposes that the United States CIA had the island destroyed in order to circumvent Mexico's claim on the many oil reserves of the Gulf. Either way, Mexico continues to make efforts to locate this missing land. Burmaha Island. Another early account of a vanishing island comes from 1575, when a peculiar island was spotted by James Newton, who was seeking to map out a northwest passage from Europe to Asia. The island was vividly described as being full of thick woods and teeming with life, and the island was simply named Bus, after the type of ship that purportedly found it. Surprisingly, numerous follow-up expeditions failed to find any trace of this island. It would not be until 1671, almost 100 years after the island's supposed discovery, that another ship would locate it. This is when Thomas Shepard of the Hudson Bay Company actually managed to land upon it, or so he believed and transcribed, and venture about the lost island. When Shepard tried to return to the mysterious island of Bus several years later, all he and his crew found was a continued wide expanse of water, as if it had never been there at all. No further expeditions were able to find any trace of this island, and it was gradually removed from maps. The common wisdom of the time was that Bus had, for some unexplained reason, sunk into the depths of the sea. Sarah Ann Island. In 1858, a fragment of land near Easter Island was discovered and claimed by an American guano company, who named it Sarah Ann Island. In the 1930s, it was noted by German astronomers that Sarah Ann Island sat directly in the line of a relatively rare total solar eclipse that would occur on June 8, 1937. It was decided by a group of scientists that it was an ideal location to set up an observatory to witness this momentous event. An expedition by the United States Pacific Fleet was sent to land on this island. When they arrived at the marked location, the island was nowhere to be seen. After an extensive search turned up no trace of the landmass scientists planned to utilize for astronomical research, a new observatory was set up on the nearby Canton and Enderbury Islands instead. As a result, Sarah Ann Island was quietly removed from official naval maps. What's interesting and noteworthy here is that Sarah Ann Island was discovered by a company that fully intended to develop it for economic reasons under the Guano Islands Act. Their records show they incurred the business cost of exploring and surveying the land, and it's highly unlikely they fabricated this story and their books in an attempt to fool investors or competing companies. To this day, Sarah Ann Island remains a mystery. We just don't know what happened to it. Newmore Island, South Talpatti. Even though the majority of tales regarding bizarre phantom islands are quite old, the mysterious disappearance of known land masses is a phenomenon experienced in our own time, far removed from the age of wooden sailing vessels and imperfect technology. In the 1970s, there was a well-known and fully explored island which sat within the vast Ganges and Brahmaputra river basin between Bangladesh and India. The island was first spotted in 1970 by American satellites and was described as being approximately 2 miles long. This island was most certainly there at the time, since it was widely seen and well documented. The discovery of this island soon sparked a dispute between the two countries, each of whom wanted to claim the territory in order to extend their territorial rights. They even had their own names for this newly discovered island, with India calling it Newmore Island and Bangladesh referring to it as South Talpatti. Things even got so heated that India sent warships to secure the island in 1981. This dispute was finally resolved over 30 years later in 2014, when a UN tribunal gave a verdict in favor of Bangladesh. By the time this dispute was finally resolved, however, the mysterious island had vanished off the face of the earth. Today, some scientists speculate that this might have been caused by global warming. In fact, Bangladesh is a low-lying delta nation of 150 million people and is one of the countries most affected by global warming. Officials estimate that 18% of Bangladesh's coastal region will be underwater and that 20 million people will be displaced by 2050 if sea levels continue to rise. Both India and Bangladesh are preparing to send their own teams to assess the situation in the region. Sandy Island. Another recent conundrum regards a disappearing island once called Sandy Island, which is supposed to exist near the Chesterfield Islands between Australia and New Caledonia. Sandy Island was no small fragment of land, measuring 15 miles long, 3 miles wide, and covering close to 45 square miles. The first available historical mention of the island was in an account by British explorer James Cook, who passed by it in 1772 and wrote about it in his journal. The island was also sporadically seen by explorers and those on trade ships throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. Several ships passed close enough for their captains to describe its vegetation, shoreline, and terrain. Sandy Island's existence was never called into question, and its location appeared on maps well into modern times, including such respectable publications as the Times Atlas of the World, National Geographic atlases, and it even appeared on Google Earth and Google Maps. However, something odd happened in the year 2000 as a group of amateur radio enthusiasts deliberately searched for a remote location. They found Sandy Island on modern maps, and, thinking the location would be perfect for their experiments and endeavors, the group traveled to the coordinates where the island was marked as being, but failed to find any sign of this island. In 2012, a team of Australian researchers set out to discover all they could about this mysterious island. They reached the purported location of Sandy Island, and their depth charts showed water to be over 4,300 feet deep. There was not even an underwater mountain in the area, indicating this wasn't a case of an island being submerged by rising seas. Any reasonable or rational answer to the question of what happened with Sandy Island remains elusive. Still, it remains a fascinating account of how blindly we trust the maps and charts we have available today. So what do we make of the cases of vanishing islands? What are your thoughts or opinions about the phantom islands we talked about? Regardless of the nature of these mysterious phantom islands, their stories capture our imaginations and show us that the known landscape of our planet is not always as defined as we'd like to think. If you find it interesting, or if you find it mysterious, share and like this video. Also, be sure to subscribe because you don't want to miss what's coming next. As always, thank you for watching.